So this is the first video for Lecture 5, and in Lecture 5 we're going to be talking about survey research. When we talk about survey research, we're going to distinguish between questionnaires, which tend to be more of the traditional either web-based or mailed or kind of pen and paper instrument you might be used to, from one-on-one or face-to-face interviews, which we're going to focus on a little bit more in qualitative research methods, but just make sure you understand that interviews are considered surveys as well. We just generally talk about them separately because they tend to be done in different types of research than you might see surveys. But that's what we're going to focus on in this presentation. So in Blackboard, you have a podcast that I've shared with you that talks about polls. And polls are probably one of the most common types of research that you might be familiar with. You'll see them done quite a bit during a political campaign, and so you might want to check out that podcast or just review at least snippets of it as it talks about not just polling and how it works, but some of the issues related to polling and why we might have some distrust in the way that polls are done today. These are all topics that are very relevant to what we're going to be talking about in this presentation. So when we talk about survey research, it's important to keep in mind that survey research is primarily done to explain. It's explanatory, which means that we're trying to find a causality. We're trying to connect one variable with another, and we're trying to say that one independent variable causes the other dependent variable. So survey research is usually done in research as what we might consider like a pre and post test, especially in social work. We really want to know that programs create the change we want to see, and so you'll see a lot of surveys that are done which basically includes questions, right? Includes questions that are done. This might include satisfaction surveys. This might include, again, the pre and post test. This might include a standardized instrument to measure depression. All of those are examples of surveys, and so we like them because they're easy to do. We like them because they're versatile. We can use them to enhance our understanding of, honestly, just about any major social issue. We can use them to study homelessness or depression. They're also efficient, which means that we can send out 10,000 surveys by clicking one button as long as we have those emails already in place. It's so much easier to do that than sitting down and doing a 2-hour interview, one person at a time. And they're generalizable. So if you have a phone book and you have a list of all the people within a given area, you can draw a probability sample and send your survey out to that group and have a pretty good statistical chance that you're going to get a sample that's fairly representative of the population from which it was drawn. And so surveys are really attractive, especially in social work, where we know we're working with very little time and very little money, which makes it especially attractive to our practice. So as an example, to work through this presentation, what I've done is all the examples are going to be based around this one survey. So I'm going to ask you to download this before you continue with the presentation. You may be able to click on this, but if I couldn't get the link to work, then just make sure you click over here and open it up. It'll open up as a Word document. And this is a survey that's basically done across the country by different homeless coalitions or different groups in order to measure the number of people who are homeless, who are not in a homeless shelter at any given point in time. And it's usually conducted every couple of years. So there's a video that I'll ask you to click and watch before you continue that looks at basically how you train volunteers. And so if you're going to do a survey, a very important part of carrying out the survey is figuring out who does it, how do they do it, how do you train them to do it. And so if you stop and watch this video, everything that we're going to be looking at here forward is going to make a lot more sense because it's going to be connected to something that's happening in real time. This survey, by the way, happens for those of you that are in DFW. It's done in Dallas, it's done in Tarrant County, and even though I haven't worked with it outside of DFW, it is also done in all the major areas across the state and and across the country. So this is something you may have already participated in or may actually be able to volunteer with at some point in the future.